I slept with my mother-in-law. Please subscribe. I never planned to betray my wife, but the night I crossed the line, it wasn't just lust that drove me into her mother's bed. It was the dark, magnetic pull of a secret neither of us should have carried. The moment her lips touched mine, I knew I had destroyed everything. Yet, instead of stopping, I surrendered, because the truth is, I didn't just sleep with my mother-in-law. I fell in love with her. When I married Clara, I thought I had stepped into the kind of life men dream about. She was beautiful, sweet, loyal, the type of woman you wanted to build a future with. But with Clara came someone else, someone I never imagined would matter to me beyond polite family dinners. Her mother, Evelyn. The first time I met her, I remember feeling confused. She wasn't like the other mothers I had met in my life. Evelyn was only 45, but she carried herself like a woman who still owned every room she entered. Her hair, a cascade of dark waves, framed a face that seemed untouched by time. She wasn't fragile or grandmotherly. She was radiant. The night Clara introduced me to her, Evelyn poured me a glass of wine, her fingers grazing mine as though it were an accident. She smiled, and something in me stirred that shouldn't have.
I told myself it was nerves. Attraction was natural, but what wasn't natural was how often I caught myself watching her, listening more to her laughter than to my fiancé's words. When Clara and I moved into Evelyn's guest house, just for a few months to save money, I thought it was a blessing. Instead, it was the beginning of my undoing.
The first glance that lasted too long. The guest house was small, just 2 rooms and a kitchen, but from its back door you could see straight into Evelyn's main house. At night, her windows glowed golden, and sometimes I'd catch the silhouette of her moving inside, pouring wine, brushing her hair, sometimes walking in nothing but a silk robe. I tried not to look. God, I tried. But temptation is a funny thing. The harder you resist, the sharper it carves itself into your mind. One evening, Claire worked late at the hospital. I had finished showering, stepped outside to cool off, and there she was, Evelyn, watering her roses. The hose glittered in her hand, spraying arcs of silver droplets across the petals. "Out late, aren't you?" she teased, her voice husky with wine. I laughed nervously. "Guess so. Can't sleep these days." She tilted her head. Newlyweds usually can't sleep, but for different reasons. Her eyes lingered on me, and I felt the weight of her gaze slip over my damp skin. I should have looked away, gone back inside. Instead, I held her stare a moment too long. That was the first silent betrayal. Not the act itself, but the thought, the imagining. Evelyn smirked faintly, as though she knew exactly what was happening in my head. She set the hose down, stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the perfume on her collarbone, something rich and spicy that didn't belong to a woman her age. "You look tense," she said softly. "Marriage already wearing you out." I swallowed, heat crawling up my neck. "No, it's good. Clara's amazing. I'm just adjusting." Adjustment. That's always the hardest part. She didn't touch me. Not yet. But she didn't have to. The look she gave me, half amusement, half invitation, followed me into bed that night. Clara curled against me, whispering she loved me, and I whispered it back. But in the darkness, the face in my mind wasn't hers.
It happened on a Sunday afternoon, when Clara was away visiting her sister. The air was hot, heavy with summer, and I decided to help Evelyn fix the screen door on her back porch. She brought me a glass of lemonade, beads of condensation running down the glass. Her blouse clung lightly to her, unbuttoned just enough to show a hint of skin. I tried not to notice. Tried. We worked side by side, and every time she bent down, her hair brushed against my arm. At one point, she reached to steady the frame, her hand covering mine. Not for balance, no. It lingered. Her thumb brushed my knuckle, a small, deliberate stroke. I froze. "Sorry," she murmured, though there was no apology in her eyes. I pulled my hand back, but it was too late. That single touch burned hotter than the midday sun. We finished the door in silence, though the air between us was louder than words. When I stood to leave, Evelyn caught my wrist. Just a light hold, enough to make me stop. "You're a good man," she whispered. Her eyes searched mine, dangerous and searching. "Clara is lucky." The way she said it, though, it didn't sound like praise. It sounded like temptation. Like she was testing whether I'd admit I wanted to be more than just my wife's husband. I muttered something, I can't even remember what, and fled back to the guest house. My hands shook, my chest thundered. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just a moment, just a slip. But that night, as Clara kissed me goodnight, I realized I hadn't stopped thinking about her mother's hand on mine, not for a single second.
It was late, too late, when it happened. Clara had gone on a weekend night shift, and the house felt unusually quiet. I sat at the kitchen table in the guest house, trying to distract myself with paperwork, but the silence kept pressing in. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps on the back door. When I opened it, Evelyn stood there in a silk robe, a bottle of wine in her hand. Her smile was tired, almost sad. "Couldn't sleep?" she said. "Mind if I join you?" I hesitated only a second before stepping aside. She poured us both a glass, the deep red shimmering under the dim light. We sat across from each other, talking about nothing. Her garden, Clara's childhood, the stress of bills, normal things. Too normal for how close her knee was to mine under the table. At some point, the wine took hold. She laughed at something I said, then covered her mouth, embarrassed. Her robe slipped slightly at the collar, and I caught a glimpse of skin I shouldn't have. She noticed my eyes flicker, and instead of pulling away, she leaned closer. "Do you ever feel," she said softly, "like life gave you something too early, too safe, too predictable?" Her gaze pierced me. She wasn't asking about herself. She was asking about me, about Clara, about us. I should have stopped her. I should have said her daughter was enough, more than enough. But I didn't. I sat there, frozen, while her hand slid across the table and covered mine. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. "Evelyn," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Shh," she breathed. And then, before I could think, before I could save myself, her lips brushed mine. It was soft, hesitant, the kind of kiss you could still pretend didn't mean anything. But I kissed her back, just for a second, just long enough to make it real. When we finally pulled apart, the silence screamed around us. She pressed her fingers to her lips, eyes wide, then stood quickly. "I shouldn't have," she whispered, almost to herself. This never happened." And then she was gone, leaving me alone at the table, the taste of her mouth still burning on mine.
The night we crossed the line. It was raining the night it happened,
Heavy sheets of water slapped against the roof of the guest house, drowning out every other sound. Clara had taken an overnight shift again, and the silence between storms felt too loud, too lonely. I was on the couch, half watching the flicker of the TV, when another knock came at the door. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Evelyn. Her robe was soaked from running through the rain, clinging to her body. She laughed softly, nervously, shaking droplets from her hair. I lost power in my house. Thought I'd wait it out here. I should have told her no, should have offered her a towel and sent her back, but instead, I let her in. The storm raged outside, but inside it was quieter than it should have been. Too quiet. I gave her a blanket, and when she sat beside me on the couch, her thigh pressed against mine. We didn't speak. Not at first. We just sat there, listening to the rain, pretending the silence wasn't heavier than thunder. Then she turned her head toward me, her face so close I could see the droplets clinging to her lashes. "You've been thinking about it too," she whispered. My chest tightened. "Evelyn?" She didn't let me finish. Her hand slid to my jaw, her lips capturing mine in a kiss that wasn't hesitant this time. It was hungry, desperate. The kind of kiss you give when you've already made the choice and you don't care about the consequences anymore. I kissed her back, hard. My hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer. And in that moment, I stopped thinking about Clara, about vows, about right or wrong. The blanket slipped away. Her robe loosened. Her skin was warm against mine, and every second burned deeper into my conscience. By the time we collapsed together in my bed, the storm outside had become a storm inside us. Every touch, every gasp, every whispered plea was another nail sealing the coffin of the life I thought I had. Afterwards, she lay with her head on my chest, breathing steady, as if she hadn't just helped me destroy everything. I stared at the ceiling, wide awake, knowing I had done the unforgivable. I didn't just betray my wife that night. I gave myself to her mother.
The rain had stopped by dawn, but the storm inside me hadn't. I woke to the sound of Evelyn slipping out of bed. She moved quietly, gathering her robe, her hair messy from the night before. For a second, I thought she might look back, give me some sign that what we'd done meant more than just lust. But she didn't. She kept her eyes down, her movements sharp, almost guilty. At the door, she whispered, "We don't speak of this, ever." And then she was gone. I lay there, sheets tangled around me, the scent of her still clinging to my skin. My chest felt crushed. I had betrayed Clara in the worst way imaginable. And yet, a part of me wanted last night again. When Clara came home that morning, exhausted from her shift, she curled into me like nothing was wrong. She kissed me softly, her lips tasting of stale coffee. I kissed her back, forcing myself to smile. My heart pounded so hard I thought she could hear it. "Everything okay?" she asked, yawning. "Yeah," I lied. But the lie stuck like glass in my throat. Later that day, Evelyn avoided me. At breakfast, she barely looked at me,
her eyes fixed on the newspaper as if it held the secrets of the universe. When our hands brushed, reaching for the sugar bowl, she pulled away like I'd burned her. Yet that night, I caught her watching me from her window. Just a flicker. Curtains shifting, her shadow and the glow of the lamp. I knew she felt it too. The pull, the hunger. And I knew something dangerous. It wouldn't end with one night. Because forbidden fruit doesn't stop tasting sweet after the first bite. It only makes you crave more.
Days turned into weeks, and with each sunrise came the same lie, pretending nothing had happened. Clara kissed me goodbye for work, and I kissed her back like a devoted husband. But inside, I was rotting, because at night, Evelyn and I kept finding each other. It started with excuses. She'd invite me over to fix the sink, or I'd stop by to borrow some sugar. But those excuses never lasted more than a few minutes before her hand found mine, before her lips claimed me again. Sometimes it was reckless, a hurried kiss in the hallway when Clara was showering. Sometimes it was deliberate, nights when Clara worked late and I'd slip into Evelyn's room, our bodies tangling in silence while thunder rolled in my chest. Each time I told myself it would be the last. Each time I lied. The danger was part of the addiction. The sound of Clara's footsteps upstairs while Evelyn's nails dug into my back. The phone buzzing with Clara's messages while Evelyn whispered my name in the dark. Every stolen second made me feel both alive and doomed. But the guilt, it never left. One morning, Clara brought us all breakfast in the kitchen. She laughed about a coworker's mistake, her hair tied up messily, her smile wide and easy. I should have felt warmth. Instead, my stomach twisted when Evelyn reached across the table for the butter, her fingers grazing mine under the cloth. Clara didn't notice. I nearly dropped my fork. I realized then we weren't just keeping a secret. We were building a bomb. One wrong move, one slip, and Clara would see the betrayal written on both our faces. And yet, when Evelyn caught my eye, her lips curling in the faintest smirk, I knew we wouldn't stop. We couldn't, because by then I wasn't just sleeping with my mother-in-law. I was addicted to her.
It happened on a Thursday evening. Clara was supposed to work a double shift, and Evelyn invited me over with nothing more than a look across the yard. That was how it was now. We didn't need words. Just a glance and I knew where to go. Her bedroom smelled like wine and lavender. She pulled me in without hesitation, her robe falling open as my hands found her waist. It was urgent, feverish, like both of us knew we were running out of time. And then, footsteps. At first I thought it was my mind playing tricks, but then I heard Clara's voice calling from the kitchen, "Mom, you home?" We froze. Evelyn's nails dug into my arm, her eyes wide with terror. "She wasn't supposed to be here," I hissed, my heart racing. Clara's footsteps grew closer. She was humming softly, setting something down on the counter. Panic surged through me. I scrambled off the bed, grabbing my shirt, while Evelyn shoved me toward the closet. "Go, now!" I slipped inside just as Clara pushed open the bedroom door. My chest pounded so loudly I thought the sound would give me away. "Hey, Mom," Clara said, cheerful. "I finished early. Thought I'd surprise you with dinner." Through the slots of the closet door, I saw Evelyn force a smile, pulling her robe tighter around her. "Oh, sweetheart, that's lovely." Clara placed a bag on the dresser, her back to me. "You okay? You look flushed." I was just napping," Evelyn replied quickly. I held my breath, sweat dripping down my back as Clara sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed that I had just been in. She chatted about work, her voice light and innocent, while Evelyn's eyes flickered toward the closet. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Clara stood. "I'll set the table. You rest a bit longer." She kissed her mother's cheek, and left the room. Only when I heard the clatter of plates in the kitchen did Evelyn open the closet door. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. "That was too close," she whispered. But when I looked at her, really looked, I saw it in her eyes. Fear, yes, but also fire. The brush with discovery hadn't scared her into stopping. It had done the opposite. It made the danger irresistible.
By now, secrecy was suffocating. Every glance from Clara felt like a lie. Every touch from Evelyn was a thrill and a curse. I was walking on the edge of a knife, and the longer I did, the more I feared the fall. It was Evelyn who broke first. One night, she called me over, saying Clara had gone out to visit a friend. The house was empty, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant chirp of crickets. She met me at the door, her robe open, eyes darker than usual. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. I froze. "Do what?" She took my hand and pulled me into her room. Us, it's more than physical. I didn't just want a fling. I didn't want just one night. Her voice cracked, and suddenly she was in my arms, shaking. "I love you. I've loved you from the moment I met you." The words hit me like a hammer. My chest tightened, my pulse spiked. I wanted to push her away. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Not really. Evelyn, I stammered. "You know I'm married. I love Clara." Her laugh was bitter, low. Love? Love is a word. Desire is a truth. And the truth is, I've been craving you. Every second you were near me, I wanted you more. And now, you're here. Her lips found mine again. Not a whisper this time, not a hesitation. A confession in motion. Every kiss carried the weight of forbidden longing. I realized then the gravity of what we'd done. We weren't just betraying Clara. We were destroying the world we had built, or what I thought was my world. And yet, in Evelyn's arms, I felt alive in a way I'd never felt with my wife. That night, we didn't speak. We didn't need to. Every touch, every embrace, every sigh was a confession louder than any words could ever be. By the time I returned to the guest house hours later, the first rays of sunlight were cutting across the bed where Clara slept, oblivious. I stood there, looking at her peaceful face, and felt the knife twist again. I had crossed a line, and there was no turning back.
It all came crashing down on a Sunday evening. Clara had returned early from work, her shift unexpectedly canceled. I was in the kitchen, trying to act normal, when I heard the soft click of Evelyn's car outside. She was coming over. Panic surged. I wanted to hide, to disappear, but it was too late. Clara called out, "Mom, are you here?" Evelyn stepped inside, smiling faintly, unaware of my trembling hands. I could see it in Clara's eyes the moment she entered the living room. Suspicion. "Why is she here?" Clara asked, voice sharp, cautious. "Just stopping by," I mumbled. But Clara didn't move. Her gaze shifted between Evelyn and me, and suddenly everything unraveled. The blush on Evelyn's cheeks, the way she avoided my eyes, the tension in my stance, it all spoke louder than any words. "You've been lying to me," Clara said slowly, her voice breaking. "Both of you." My stomach dropped. Evelyn's hand found mine under the table, but I could see Clara notice. Her eyes narrowed, a mixture of shock and fury. "How long?" she whispered, almost to herself. Evelyn's face fell. "Clara, Don't!" Clara cut her off. Tears streaked her face. "I trusted you. Both of you. I can't even—" The house felt smaller, the air thick with betrayal.
Evelyn tried to reach for her, to explain, to justify, but the words stuck in her throat. Clara turned on her heel and fled to her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I sank into the couch, numb, every heartbeat hammering with guilt and fear. Evelyn knelt beside me, whispering apologies, but I couldn't hear them. The truth was already spoken in silence, in glances, in the wreckage of a marriage we'd shattered. Hours later, Clara left, suitcase in hand, leaving Evelyn and me alone in the empty house. We sat in silence, the weight of our actions pressing down like the storm that had raged weeks before. We had wanted desire, passion, forbidden love, but we hadn't counted on the cost. And in that moment, I realized something I would carry forever. I hadn't just slept with my mother-in-law. I had destroyed everything I ever loved. Evelyn reached for me, but I pulled away. She nodded, understanding. There were no more stolen moments, no more lies, only the consequences, only the truth. And it was unbearable.